Nightingale Conant is proud to present Unleash the Power Within, an exciting live audio seminar by Tony Robbins.
Think of a change in your own life, or maybe someone you know, that was really hard for you to make. Like, really hard. You kept trying to change, never followed through, and finally one day, wham! You said, that's it, no more, never again, it's over.
You're about to participate in a groundbreaking audio seminar by Tony Robbins, the world's leading expert on the psychology of peak performance and human potential. Recorded live at Tony's life-transforming Unleash the Power Within weekend, you'll experience the essence of the Tony Robbins experience, a powerful, high-energy examination of your life and its grand possibilities.
At the end of your life, I don't think you're going to remember all the experiences of your life. I just don't. I think you'll remember certain moments. And you can create them, or you can hope they show up every once in a while. Rarely does the quality of life just happen. It must be created and constructed with conscious thought, caring, and desire. That's what makes a great life.
Tony has spent over 20 years sharpening his life-enhancing strategies while coaching people around the world. Unleash the Power Within is the culmination of all he's learned and the tools that you need to make your life extraordinary. His dynamic powerhouse style, combined with his empathic approach to human transformation, have made Tony Robbins America's results coach and a world-class leader of profound sensitivity and insight.
So this is the ultimate success formula. It comes down to knowing what you want, why you want it, taking massive action, know if it's working, and that's it. Anyone who succeeds does this.
Take a front row seat for Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. You'll learn to immediately break through your self-imposed limitations, create lasting change, and condition your mind for a lifetime of constant and never-ending fulfillment.
There's so much in our lives that we can do. We could all be up at 6 a.m. with total passion for living. We could all be as fit and healthy and as strong as we can imagine. We all have the capability for that. We could all have the impact on our friends and our kids and our families that we want to have. We could also be happy every single day. We could. It's not impossible. The problem is our belief systems keep us from actually engaging the parts of us that would make that a must and not a should. Because we all got lots of shoulds, right? I should do this, I should do that, I should go on a diet, I should follow through, I should spend more time, I should make that extra call, but we don't actually do it. We just what I call should all over ourselves, basically. And so we want to turn those shoulds into musts, and anybody can do that. How many of you have had an experience where in a moment, something you've been working on for years, or struggled with for months, you just like nothing worked, and all of a sudden, wham! I mean, something happened, you said, that is it, never again, no more, and you made the shift in a relationship, in your business, in your career, someplace in life. How many can relate to this? Say, I. This is really the beginning of a journey, and it's a journey that I can promise you will be one you won't forget, not because I'm so great, but because you got all these things inside of you. If you came here for me to be your guru, you came to the wrong place, because that's not what I'm about. I'm just a guy. I have some really good solutions to ideas because for 2 decades of my life, 21 years now, it's been my obsession. What makes people what they do, and how do you change it quickly when what they're doing is not what they want? How do you produce results? And I've been now with, about 2 million people from 65 countries, so you don't have to be too smart over 2 decades of that many patterns to start seeing there are patterns in human behavior, and they're predictable patterns. And when you know what they are, you can change things in lightning-like speed, just like your mechanic knows how to fix your car, hopefully, or your computer expert pretends that they know the answer to that. Each one of you have your focus. You have an area of your life that you know much more than I do, and you're an expert in that area. So I'm not coming to you this weekend as having all the answers, but I've got some that work just because they work globally, meaning worldwide, no matter what your background is, what your past experience is, your gender, your color, your religious beliefs. There are certain fundamental laws of the human psyche and the human physiology that when you engage them, you will get results, period. In fact, I got a question for you. How many of you in this room have ever gone to an educational experience of any sort, a seminar, university experience, anything? You learned something you really thought was valuable. I mean, you really truly knew was valuable, but then you never actually applied what it is you learned. How many have had this experience? Say I. How many have had this happen to you more than once in your lifetime? Say I. How many still feel like you're intelligent? Say I. How is it that an intelligent person like you and I could learn something more than once, know it's valuable, and then never use it? Well, the answer is because we've all been taught a big lie. The lie is that information is power. Information is not power. Information is potential power. Only one thing gives you power, and that's action. I want to tell you right now, I don't believe in positive thinking. Positive thinking says go to your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. Okay? I got news for you, buddy. There are weeds there, and they're going to take your garden. Okay? So I'm not one of those positive thinking people. I want you to be clear about that. I believe in intelligence. Intelligence says this. Number one, see it as it is, but don't see it worse than it is, which is what most people do out of fear. Most people are so afraid of being disappointed again that they say they're skeptical or they're pessimistic. When someone says they're skeptical or pessimistic, you can translate that real quickly as I'm fearful. I'm afraid to get hurt. I'm afraid to get my hopes up. I'm afraid to try again. I'm afraid to go through the disappointment. I'm afraid of what other people say if I don't look good and it doesn't work out well. I'm afraid to fail. That's pessimism. That's skepticism. Courage means you got to see it as it is, but you also, step two, got to see it better than it is. You got to know how it really is, but then you got to get a vision for what you want. There's a great book called The Good Book that says, without a vision, people perish. And you know what? We all have to have a compelling vision, a compelling future. How many of you know exactly what you want in your life? How many have no clue? Where are the rest of you people? Kind of in between? Well, I'm not quite sure. On the cusp, are you? So we're going to help you develop what is that compelling future. But you got to see it as, you got to see it better than it is, and then you got to make it the way you see it. And the way I'm going to show you how to do that is really fundamental. It requires three things I've mentioned. Number one, you want to change your life? There's only one way. You've got to raise your standards. And I know that sounds unbelievably stupid and simplistic, but it is the only way in which a person's life changes. What does it mean to change your standards? It means you have to take the shoulds in your life and make them musts. Because as long as it's a should, you'll do it when it's convenient, and convenience does not create consistency. And if you're good at anything, you're consistent. If you've got a great relationship, it's not because once in a while you show up and are passionate and loving. It's consistency that makes a relationship work. It's consistency that will give you financial independence, not being good for a while with your investments or being good for a while in your earnings. It's consistency. And the only way to get that is to have a standard, a must. And people, all of us in this room right now, have exactly what we must have. You say, no, Tony, I'm struggling. I don't have what I must have. Trust me, I must have a better relationship than this. I must have more money than this. I must have less weight on my body than I got right now. Trust me, it's a must. No, not yet. Unless you're in the process, unless you really are making progress, the answer is no, it's still a should. And so what we got to do is get it to a must. And when it's a must, everything in life changes. Michael Jordan, great example. And one of the things that's neat about Michael is if you ask Michael, you know, what is it that separates you from everybody else? What's made you the best that exists? He's very humble, really warm. He's, thanks for the comment. And I say, you know, is it talent? Is it ability? Is it God-given gifts? I mean, what is it? And Michael will tell you, he said, Tony, no one has a higher demand on themselves than I have on me. He said, I don't compete with other people. I compete with what my best could possibly be. Because if I competed with other people, then I'm only going to push myself so hard. His standard is really simple. He modeled it from a man named Dr. J. Dr. J in his day was probably the best player of the league. He had a simple philosophy. Dr. J, somebody came to him when he was in his mid-30s, and they said to him, Dr. J, how come you're so darn good? How come you're so lucky to have all these skills? And Dr. J was a very cool guy. He never got upset. But he also got a little heated, and he said, let me tell you why I'm this way. Because every day since I was 7 years old, I've demanded more from myself than anyone else could possibly expect. Now, isn't that interesting? If every day you demanded more from yourself than anyone else could expect of you, if it wasn't the standards of what other people think, but it was the standards of what you were capable of, if that was the must for you, not the should, then would you eat differently today? If you had to be that great every day in your relationship, even though you're exhausted and tired, you're going to go home and be that passionate, that committed, if that was a must, to be your absolute best every single day, to have a higher demand on yourself than your spouse, boyfriend, or girlfriend could ever imagine. If that was your standard for yourself, how would you show up on a daily basis in your relationship? What would your relationship look like? You could take that any area of your life. But people the best have those standards. Most of us wait for life to give us the have-dos. It's like if you don't push yourself, you don't stretch yourself, then God shows up and says, you need a little growth, and provides it to you in a way you probably won't find very pleasant. So I believe in raising my own standards, so hopefully God doesn't have to step in too many times with me. Right? Maybe God just gives me the opportunity and I can make some intelligent choices. Second thing that all people do who get what they really want, who expand and have a quality of life, is they change their limiting beliefs. Because the only thing keeping you from getting what you really want really is the belief that you can't have it, even though you say you think you can. The unconscious belief. The belief inside of you that says, oh yeah, I can do this, and this voice inside says, who are you kidding? We're going to give you a few skills on how to get your beliefs aligned. Have you ever been in a place where you were so focused, it was like you and the task at hand, and there was nothing else in the world but what you were committed to? Bombs could be going off, you wouldn't know about it. How many of you have ever been in that place? I call it a genius state. How many been there? Say I. Okay, that's the state you're going to get yourself into. Absolute certainty. The bottom line is, what you're thinking about in this moment is controlled by your beliefs and your values, the way you've been raised, right? But many of you never chose those consciously. You just kind of pick this stuff along the way, and it affects your life. So we're going to decide consciously. And we're not only going to destroy what doesn't work, you're going to install what you need. And when your beliefs are on track, when your values are on track, you are pulled in the direction you want instead of being pulled apart. You ever been in that place? It's like you want two things that are totally in conflict. I'll show you how to resolve that. And that'll be a huge, huge shift for most of you. And then the third thing you need to really make your life work, besides incredibly high what? Uh-oh, we're in deep trouble already, I can see. Really high what? That's right. You got to raise your standard, whatever it is. It's got to be the next level of standards for you. You can't get to the next level of your life with the same level of thinking, with the same level of standards as you have right now in this moment. So I could give you a million skills, give you all the ability. You get pumped out of your mind, leave here, and unless it's a must for you, you'll go back to doing the same stuff. You know, you have like a nice month or two of like riding high on the float to the seminar, but I'm seeing permanent, lasting change. The only way you do that is get enough leverage on yourself that change is a must. And once you change it, it's so reinforcing, you stick with it. Not because you're so disciplined, but because it's so rewarding. Then the third thing you got to have is the right strategy. Because it's one thing to have a high standard, like you go, I'm going to go out and change the world. That's my must. And then your voice inside goes, who are you kidding? And you got a problem. But let's say you got the standard and the belief. And let's say your goal is to see a sunset, and your strategy is start running east looking for a sunset. I don't care how much you believe, you got a problem. You got to have the right strategies. Strategies for overcoming fear, strategies for taking action, strategies for attraction, causing attraction to happen to another person towards you and vice versa. Strategies for feeling love, strategies for making decisions, strategies for creating rapport, things that work. Why do they work? Why is it a strategy? It's proven. Because people of all directions, backgrounds, genders, all can do the same result. It's a strategy when anyone can do it, as long as they do it that way. It's like a recipe. Once you know it, you create the same result as often as you want. But you got to have the right strategy, or you can work real hard and be a really good person and be a real hard worker and still have nothing. And most people have this in lots of areas of their life. Their financial life is an obvious example. 95% of this population ends up dead, broke, or dead by age 65. Why? They don't have the right strategy, and they have low standards and they don't believe. But some of them even have those two, but they don't have the strategy. So we're going to work on all three of those elements. Does that make sense? Let me offer you a possibility. We know you've learned from the past and not done it. Why? Why is because all this information came at you. But as I said to you, information doesn't change your life. We live in the information age, supposedly. There's too much information. You can't possibly absorb it to you. Where's it coming from? Everywhere, right? Right? It's coming from CD-ROMs and pretty soon DVDs for many of you, and it's on the internet. We are drowning information, and we're starving for wisdom. We're starving for those things we can actually use to actually get what we really want. Otherwise, you can spend all your time on the internet reading more information or chatting or buying something and never have any change of life. The internet's not going to make your life better. You have to make your life better by using your resources differently. But here's the deal. We're not in the information age. We're in the entertainment age. Here's what really grabs us. Something that moves us emotionally. We don't remember all that information. When something grabs us, man, we remember. Some of you old enough to be around long enough to know this, remember where you were when you heard John F. Kennedy was shot. Right? For some of you, maybe it was John Lennon if he was an associated hero for you. For others of you, it's, you remember everything about Monica Lewinsky. By the way, she's now just Monica, just like Oprah, right? Michael, right? It's now Monica. Everybody on earth knows who Monica is, right? There's an emotion, right? There's a feeling. There's something there. It's not the information that's getting you, right? O.J. Simpson was the big focus before that. Why were people watching every single day? Drama, entertainment, emotion, feeling. So the only reason people pay attention when we get something is you add feeling to it. So here's my goal with you. I don't want this to be a class. We're going to try something different. We're going to go into 21st century learning. See, this was designed for you to obey, to enter the 20th century, where your job was working in an industrial complex of some sort, maybe building cars or something. And so they trained you from birth that you'd arrive on time, check in, do what you're supposed to do, and sit and shut up till someone told you what to do, and then you only did what they told you to do, and you didn't talk to your neighbor. Now today in business, if you don't talk to your neighbor, you're out of business. Right? Today, if you wait for somebody to tell you what to do, you're in trouble. I mean, today you got to think. You're in teams. You got to make it happen. You got to create it. You got your own business. It's a different world. So this has trained us for a world we're not in. So we have to be in a proactive, aggressive, entertainment-driven, emotional world. That's where we are. That's what you want. So the only way to get that is to learn in that state. So this is going to be very different for most of you. I'm going to ask you not to be the passive, deep trance, hypnotic subjects. I'm going to ask you to be outrageous, playful, crazy, silly, and fun. If you and I are going to be effective as people, which means have fun, be fulfilled, be passionate, get results, achieve, learn, grow, all that, then we've got to become active rather than passive in our experience. In order to do that, it starts with the way we move and the way we think. And so I have a metaphor for myself. I think the most influential people in the world are kids. How many of you have kids? How many of you ever tried to say, no, you can't have an ice cream cone to a kid and saw moves you've never seen in your life before? Right? They don't hear no, it goes right on by. So if we want a quality life, one thing's for sure, we've got to become people of influence. You got to be influenced your kids and your family and yourself. You got to get yourself to do what's necessary. I mean, influence is the base skill for quality life. Influence with integrity. So if you're going to influence yourself, then you might look at kids because they're good at influencing. And they do it a lot of ways. They do it with their energy, don't they? They do it with playfulness. They do it by asking a gazillion questions. They do it because they're having so much fun that even when they annoy you, they make you laugh every bit, right? Somehow they pull it off. And so my view is I'm always going to be a kid, no matter what age I am. Because kid or adult or old person's all a mindset. I know a man who's 84 years old who has just started lifting weights about 6 years ago, now lifts bench presses 450 pounds. I mean, unbelievable. This guy is like pure stud, right? And there's all kinds of research showing now about people starting in their 60s and 70s start lifting weights and get as strong as men and women in their 20s and 30s. And his mind is the best part, though. That's why he does it. I mean, sure, anybody could learn to do that. But most people don't have that as a standard. I mean, come on. We're all in cultural hypnosis. I mean, when you're in your 60s, it's over, baby, right? You're getting old. Baby boomers start freaking when they hear those kinds of things, right? They go, wait a second, I'm in my 50s now. I'm in my late 40s. I'm going to defy all that stuff, right? But most people in their 60s and 70s don't have that as their standard, saying, I'm going to learn to bench press 450 pounds, so they don't. It's a should. It's not even a should. It's a never maybe. They don't have any belief that it's possible, any sense of certainty, and they have no strategy. He had all three. I also know a young man I was talking to recently, he's 21 years old, he's probably the oldest person I've ever met in my life. Because everything is impossible for him, and he's tired all the time, and he can't accomplish anything, and the world is forever terrible. It's a mindset, isn't it? How many want to be a kid for a few days here? Say I. Okay, then if you're willing to do that, here are a couple ways to do it. Number one, when I ask you a question, yell back the answer. Not so we have a rah-rah session here, but because research shows if you sit and listen to me passively, within 4 weeks you'll remember 10% of what I said. If you listen and take some notes, jumps up into the 50 percentiles. If you listen, take notes, but physically are active, like you yell back the answer, your attention is in the 90 to 95 percentiles, because what happens is, like when you yell an answer back, it's like driving the grooves of what you learn deeper inside of you. Plus, you're going to know the answer to anything I ask you. I'm only going to ask you questions you know the answer to because I want to help you to have strong self-esteem. It's easy stuff. But by yelling yes, you'll also keep your energy high. How many want to do this, especially when you don't feel like it, so you build some emotional muscle? Do you agree with me that if you really want an extraordinary quality of life, that one of the things you got to master is your ability to get yourself to take action, to influence yourself, number one. How many agree with that? Say aye. How many agree, number two, you'd have to become good at influencing others with integrity, meaning getting people to do the things they normally won't do for themselves. How many agree with that? Say aye. Outstanding. So if influence is a skill, it starts in the first moments of human communication or connection. So I want you to try something silly. I want you to notice little things. You know, most people think little things don't matter. They want to see the big thing. But I have a different mindset. When someone negotiates a deal that changes planet Earth, like, you know, Gorbachev and Reagan get together, and for the first time in human history you destroy nuclear bombs, I want to know what caused that. And everybody looks at the big thing. But I get together, and I've had the privilege of being with both those guys, and I found out exactly from them what was the little thing. They didn't even notice at the time. Like later on in retrospect, they figured out what actually made them become friends, actually made them make an agreement. Little things change everything. If you're heading this direction, and we make a little 10-degree shift, it looks like nothing, 10 degrees between these two. But if you take that 10-degree shift out a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, you have a revolution. You have a totally different destination and where your life turns up. Because it's so much easier to change the little things when you're way upstream. It's like I have a simple philosophy. Kill the monster while it's little, when it's a baby. Don't wait till it's eating the city before you kill the monster. Okay? And we all have little monsters inside that we want to handle. We also have some real great things that we want to magnify. One of the things that changes your life is when you think you've hit your highest standard, what makes life never the same again is when you literally decide that there is a higher standard for you. When you decide there is more. And that's a conscious decision. You see it in an athlete when there's nothing physically left inside of them, it appears, and no one else expects it from them, and they reach down inside and they step up, right, to the challenge. And you can just see it. It's determination, right? It's will. It's faith. It's courage, it's passion. It's when you reach down and you find something more inside of you. And by the way, that's where all the juice is. That's what you all came here for, whether you tell me that or not. I know that's what you really want. You may have other ways of languaging what you want, but what you're hoping for are those core feelings. But those core feelings are things you can have in a heartbeat. You just must exert them. But it starts with even the way you move. So I want you to think about constantly raising the standard, because if you in life are in a position where you do a poor job at something, and that's your standard, like, on a regular basis, you don't even do a good job. You're pretty poor at it. In life, you do a poor job. What kind of rewards do you get for a poor job? Poor. That's what I used to think, too. I used to think if you did a poor job, you got poor rewards. Seemed to make sense. That's not how life is rigged. You do a poor job, you get no rewards. You do a poor job, you get the door. Poor job too often, you're out of here. You get downsized, right-sized, outsourced. Isn't that true? You do a poor job in a relationship, that person's not going to stick around. You do a poor job with your kids, they end up in jail. Poor equals pain. Poor, there are no rewards for poor. It's not an equal deal. You do a poor job, you get a poor reward. Wrong. Let's say that standard's way down here. Now, the next level of standards would be a huge jump way up here to something called good. Now, when you do a good job at something, what kind of rewards do you get? Some of you say, good. No, I used to think that too. You do a good job, you get good rewards. Wrong. I'll tell you the most scary thing that happens to me every day in my life. I get stopped every single day by at least a dozen people, and they come up and they either tell me incredible stories about their life has changed. They'll say something like, Mr. Robbins, and they're really serious. And you can see there's some pain. They go, I watched it on TV and I thought, if I ever met you, I might ask you this question. They'll ask me a question something like, I'm really a good man. How come my wife left me? And it's heartbreaking. Or she'll say, I'm really a good wife. How come my husband left me? Or I care about my kids. How come they hate me? How come my kid's on cocaine? And it tears me up inside because I care so much about people, and you can't tell them what the truth is. The truth is you did a good job. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Because when you do a good job, what kind of rewards you get? Poor. So the bottom line is, most people here are really trying to do a good job, and most people are really good. They're really good. I was a good man, and I was fat, and I was overweight, and in the emotional sense, I was broke. Financially, I was broke. Spiritually, I was wiped out, and I was a good guy. And I was so frustrated because I said, I'm good. You got to know, good's not good enough. Now, I know none of you would settle for good. You wouldn't come here. You're all overachievers, right? So poor is not even in the realm of your possibility. Good, this big jump here, you go, that's for wusses. You guys here are ultimate achievers. You're way up here with a thing called excellence, am I right? That's what I thought. How many here are committed to excellence? Say aye. Outstanding. When you do an excellent job at something, what kind of rewards do you get? Good. And you know what? It really annoys you too, doesn't it? Because most people go, wait a second, you ever done this? You ever achieved a goal, man? You went for it, you achieved it, man, you made it happen, and then you went, is this all there is? How many been in that place? And it's kind of like a depressing moment, isn't it? Because you worked so hard for it, you achieved the goal, and you're still not happy. That's because you were really excellent. See, excellence is like you're like one of the best. Excellence is you really do, an excellent job. You're not just good, and you're certainly not poor. For God's sakes, you should have bigger rewards emotionally or financially or in your career or in your relationship for being excellent. Nope. You go, I don't have anything left. There's nothing left of me. I've given my all. Nope. You've not given your all. There's that little piece you haven't got to that if you get to it, you get all the rewards. Because if this is poor, huge jump to good, huge jump to excellence. Here's the good news. All the rewards are at the next level. And they're disproportionate. I mean, they're like way beyond what you can imagine. And the good news is they're about this much higher than excellence. At a level right there, right? Right there. And that level, hallelujah. feels like a sermon at this point, right? That level right here that's just a few inches above, it's called outstanding. And when you are outstanding, when you stand out from all the rest, in your courage, and your commitment, and your persistence, and your love, and your dedication, and your skill set, and your whatever, you get all the rewards. And it's unfair, really, because you're only a little bit better than those people that are excellent, but your rewards are like a gazillion amount. It's just being outstanding on a consistent basis instead of being excellent. And that difference, by the way, is not usually really a large skill difference. It's a psychology difference. It's a standard difference. It's what you hold yourself to. I mean, did you watch the opening to the Olympics in Atlanta? When this guy walked out, I don't know if you remember, how many saw the opening to the Olympics? And this little guy walks out, he's 97 years old. He's the oldest living gold medalist. And he walks out into the field, and what happens? 100,000 people in the stadium stand up and clap. The president cried. I mean, why? They don't even know who this guy is. Because they know he was outstanding probably 40, 50, 60 years ago. Unbelievable. Think about it, 70 years ago. That's what we value outstanding in a culture. A good example is Carrie Strug. Now, this little girl, remember what happened? This little girl gets hurt, injured. It's like a movie, right? It's like a Rocky movie all encapsulated. Because you're watching, it's like the Americans finally look like for the first time they're going to be able to finally win, finally beat the Russians. And sure enough, all of a sudden this girl wrecks her leg. And as she does it, everybody's like, oh my God, it's over, it can't happen. There she goes, holds it in. And what happens? She goes away, everybody's there, and all of a sudden the monitor comes in and goes, my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. She's standing up. She's walking towards the mat. She couldn't. She can't. It couldn't be. She's not going to try it, is she? And the whole place gets really dramatic and quiet, and this little girl with nothing but guts and heart, through the pain, goes and lands. Holds just long enough, pulls that leg up, and everybody goes crazy. They win the gold medal. How many of you cried? Come on, you cried out there, come on. And you don't even know this girl. If you felt the emotion in that moment, if you cried or you felt celebratory, there's only one reason why. Because in that moment you recognize the part of you. That's what made you feel moved. You know there's a part of you that's outstanding. If you cried, it may have been that you're not fully utilizing that part of you and you realize that. Felt celebratory, maybe you just for a moment remember what it would feel like if you engaged that part of you. But that only happens by a decision, because it wasn't skill that made her win, it was heart. And that's something you have total control of. If you'll push yourself beyond anything you thought was available, and like lifting a weight, like, I mean, how do you build a bicep? How do you do it? What do you got to do? You got to demand, you got to put a huge demand on it consistently, don't you? You have to take a weight. You can exercise it. If you don't exercise it, it atrophies. But to grow a muscle, like really build it, you got to take on something that's much harder, much more uncomfortable, not what you planned for, not what's comfortable for you. And if you make yourself do it even though it's uncomfortable, and you do it again and again, you get growth, because as you make a demand, the muscle expands. So it is true with a muscle called passion. The more you demand of it, the more it'll expand. But if you just do what you're already comfortable with, you'll leave here kind of pumped up, feeling good, and you'll say, wasn't that a cool seminar? But your life won't be changed. You'll have had a great weekend that'll last a month or so. That's not why I came by. I really want to see you give yourself the gift of raising the standard. By the way, if I'm going to do 10 curls, which one of those 10 gives me, which one of those 10 do I want to do the least? Probably. Which one? Number 10. Which one gives you all the growth? Number 11. Good people do 10 when 10 is what's asked of them. Excellent people usually 10 and a little half. Outstanding people always do more than is expected of them, because they're not doing it for someone else, they're doing it for what they know they're capable of. It's when you feel like you don't have an ounce left and you make yourself do it when all of your life has changed. So imagine you've come to the mental, emotional, and spiritual gym. I'm not here to tell you what to believe religiously in any way. I have no conversation for you there. I am respectful of whatever you believe. Whatever you believe, I'd say practice it. But spirituality is not just religion. It's the way you live your life. So if you entered the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual gym, then what you'd be here to do is to push yourself harder than ever before, because if you go in that gym and just kind of hang out, you're going to get exactly what you put into this gym. Now, I won't ask you to do anything. I don't put myself there first. So I will be an example of what's possible in my own way, but you want to be your way. But I'll show you the standard of what can be done here, because I know that if you'll join me in this little part of the journey, you're going to experience more of yourself, because it's just a law of you. It's not me. It's the law of physiology, the law of the mind and the emotion. Does this conversation make any sense? Now, let me tell you a mistake most people make in life. They live by a philosophy of someday. Someday I will be able to feel the way I want to feel when I meet a certain person, when I achieve a certain income, when I finally get that position in my business, when I finally turn things around, when I'm finally physically fit. Someday when? And that someday never shows up, because then you meet the person and go, yeah, but did I really make the right choice? That really empowers the relationship, right? Or you make the money and then people worry they're going to lose it. Or they achieve the job and then they worry someone else is going to get that position. So someday never comes. So one of the things you've got to do is learn to train your nervous system to feel good. How many find that when you feel good, you're not just happy, but you actually perform better, and you also are better in the way you treat other people as well? How many find that to be true? Say, I. Then I want us to train ourselves like a muscle to feel good, to drill that into our nervous system, because feeling good is a physiology. It's a way of moving. It's a way of breathing, because the way you feel is totally related to the way that you move. Emotion, ladies and gentlemen, is created by motion, right? Emotion is created by motion. The more you move, the more you're going to feel. And people have very limited emotion and have very limited motion in their face and their body. They're kind of holding everything back. So what you want to do is loosen up and be a little crazy. So one way to do that is not to wait to have the good feelings you want. Because, see, you think when something happens, then you're going to feel good. But who's going to make you feel good when that thing happens? You are. You go, well, when I finally make that money, then I'll feel good. Oh, yeah? How do you know? Well, because I'll decide to feel good at that point. Ha ha. Why not decide now, feel good while you're on the way to doing that? Do both. Why wait, right? Or, you know, another, it's like people say all the time, you know, they go through a tough situation. They'll, someday we'll look back and laugh at this. Why wait? You know, if you're going to do it someday, might as well look back right now and get it over with, right? Start laughing, have some fun with it. Most of us do not have the privilege of an environment that is surrounded with only outstanding people. And if you were to ask me, Tony, before you tell me anything else, what would be the most important tool to influencing the quality of my life forever above all else? My first hands-down answer was the ability to manage your state, the state of your mind and body during tough times. The capacity to do that is the number one skill that will basically determine your destiny. Because the state you are in will determine your decisions about what to believe and what to feel and what to do. And what you do will create the results of your life known as your destiny, at least the one on earth. So the bottom line is, state is everything. So we're going to learn how to master that. But if I had to give you the number two, it's who you surround yourself with. Who you associate to is who you will become. Because it's so easy to surround ourselves with people who have a lower standard than we have. And the problem with that is, sooner or later, if you're around people and you care about them, you don't want to be judging them, so you lower your standard for them. You can't help but lower the standard for you too when it's somebody you care about. It happens. It's the old adage, you lie down with dogs, you come up with fleas. It sounds terrible, but it's really accurate. I was speaking for the Marines recently, and I'm talking to them, and it was an interesting thing. I went out to Camp Pendleton. There's only 2 places the Marines train. And I got to be with this huge group, a couple thousand of these guys, as well as all of the brand new recruits who just made it through boot camp, and another group of guys that had been on a 9-day wilderness retreat where they don't let them eat for 4 days and they starve them and everything else, but they didn't want them to miss my talk, so they brought them out in full gear, their black and green paint across their faces, their M40s, right, all standing there at attention while I spoke for 4 hours. But I was talking to them about standards because the Marines have helped all of those men and women to raise their standards, and they have a different quality of life within the context of being a Marine. Now, whether that's the quality of life you want is a whole other thing, but that's what they have. They have a higher physical standard, that's for sure. Mental standard, discipline standard than they ever had in their lives before. And a lot of that had to do with being in that environment. I talked to them about how they have to take that environment wherever they go and have a higher standard than the Marines have. They have to have a higher standard when they leave the Marines. And I was talking later on to one of the generals there, and he was talking to me, and he's saying, Tony, you know, what you said was so on the mark. These men have developed pride in themselves because they've made themselves do things that they normally wouldn't have done. But he said it's definitely been influenced by this environment. And many of them, when they leave this environment, this will have been the peak of their life in terms of how proud they were of themselves and what they accomplished in their life. Many of them will never do. They'll never translate this standard to their daily life when they leave here. And he said, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because people don't care, or people are basically lazy, or you have to supervise people, or, you went through all these things? And I said, no. I said, I really think it's that most people's lives are a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer group. What does that mean? Well, your peer group, first of all, is anybody around you that you respect and you give them emotional power. Meaning, what they think or what they feel affects you. They're your friend, you want them to like you. So at some level, whether you're aware of it consciously or not, it affects you. Maybe it's your family members. I don't know who your peer group is. Maybe it's people at work. But it's the people that you care what they think or feel. Even if you say you don't, we all care at some level, right? Who are those people for you? That's your peer group. And your life will be a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. And here's the challenge. What if you have a higher expectation for your life than the people you surround yourself with? Higher expectation for what you want from your life, in terms of your passion or joy or love. Higher expectation of what you want to accomplish. Higher expectation of what you want to feel, or spirituality, or whatever it is. Well, now you have a conflict. Because now what will happen is, if you have a higher expectation than your peer group who really does care about you, will pull you down. Not because they're trying to pull you down, because they don't want to lose you. So they'll say, hey, come on, don't be so serious. Don't be working at that all the time. Come on, relax. Geez, what's the matter with you? And they will find ways to undermine what's going on. Not because they don't love you, because they do love you. Because unconsciously they sense, oh my God, you might change, grow, or expand. What would that mean to me? I could get left behind. And most of us want love so much at an unconscious level, if not at a conscious level. We want acceptance so much that through time, gradually, over the years, we lose what our dreams are. We lose our expectations. And what we once thought was a must is kind of a, well, interesting. We don't even think about it anymore. It's not even a should. Or maybe it's a should someday if all comes together. And so I would say to you that you have an opportunity to get a fresh look at your life. This is a crash course in transforming every area of your life that you want to. The value is we're going to create an environmental standard here that's quite extraordinary. We're going to create it together. Mark my words. Whoever you spend time with, you will become. So you better choose real well. Am I saying get rid of your friends? No. Here's the other way you can do it. You can lead. You can have such a high standard that no matter how low the standard is above you or how nice it is, you can take it from good to excellent to outstanding for your friends if they have the desire and if they have enough caring to be with you. But you're going to have to make those choices. It's not the kind of conversation that you hear in a positive thinking kind of environment. I'm not saying go surround yourself with positive people. I'm saying you got to make sure that wherever you are, you at least have some core friends that have a standard that is so high that both of you will grow. It's like if you want to play tennis, you don't play against somebody who's worse than you are on a regular basis and expect to get better. It just doesn't happen. If you got the guts, you play somebody who's better than you are and you work like crazy so you can move up. And maybe you have some people that play at your level too, but you got to play at that game. Raise that standard. If I was going to say, like in 2 words, what this all about is about stepping up, man. And you got to decide to step up or pull back. So you got to take a look and say, okay, what is it that I really want? And I got to make some really conscious choices. And if you make those, you can have more fun than you've ever had before. It's not like living a life that's totally disciplined, because discipline never lasts. Because discipline is as painful and you do it anyway. You got to do it anyway in the beginning, but after a while, it becomes natural for you because it's so rewarding to play at this level called outstanding. You won't want to go back. It won't be, I got to discipline myself. It'll be, this is who I am. And that's when things really shift. Tell you a secret. It's so easy to feel good. The only reason you're not is standards. You don't have a standard to feel good all the time because society says that feeling bad, that's natural. Feeling good all the time, you got a problem. Right? Second, you don't believe it. And thirdly, you don't know the strategy consciously. Now here's what you need to understand. Any emotion you're feeling is just a pattern. It's a pattern of how you use your body. It's a pattern of how you use language, and it's a pattern of what you tend to focus on and believe about it. Those three patterns make up all your emotions. If you're upset, you're using your body in a certain way. You're saying certain things outside and inside your head in a certain way. And I don't mean this self-talk, positive thinking. I mean certain words trigger you. Like if I say, Michael, you're mistaken. That feels different than if I say, Michael, you are wrong. That feels different than if I say, Michael, you are lying. Right? How many can feel the difference between those three? If someone's saying to you, say, I. So there are certain words, we're not like being positive, certain words that will fire off your emotion in different ways, different levels. And your belief, what you're certain is going to happen, affects you. So people get in habits again and again, and then they think they're not doing it. They think it just happens because something environment happens and they start doing it. It's just a pattern you learned a long time ago, and you've done it so long, it's ingrained. So there are three patterns, I call it the triad, that everything that you feel are created out of, and whether you do something or not is based on how you feel. For example, faith, determination are triads. They are nothing but a big word, a generalization for three things you're doing when you're determined. Use your body in a certain way when you're determined. You do certain things in your head, what you say to yourself or out loud, and you picture or focus on certain things and believe certain things. When you're fearful, you do something different with your body, something different with your language, something different with what you focus on and believe. How many follow the general thought of this? Say, I. So you don't get depressed, you do depression. See, most people think if they take antidepressants, they won't get depressed. Bull. I do it all the time. Some people take in maximum dosages, 6, 7, 8 pills at a time, still get depressed. Because your body will override all of that. Because depression comes from a triad. Some people get depressed because they think they're getting older. Some people get depressed because they think they're going to lose their relationship. Some people go depressed. We all come up with reasons. Whenever you think your future is uncertain, when you feel like you have no future, when you feel completely overwhelmed, like you can't figure it out, then people feel depressed. Doesn't matter how many drugs you take. So the challenge is not that you're not capable of not being depressed. The challenge is that she believes she needs to be depressed. Now, that's a pretty ugly thing to say, but it's true. Because we live in a culture that if you weren't really sad when you lose somebody, then obviously you don't care. But are there cultures, I'm just curious, where someone dies, where their belief is death is the beginning and not the end, that death is graduation, and where they not only believe that, like intellectually believe it, but they know it in their soul, and since they believe that and know it, they also believe that to be sad is blasphemy or a form of selfishness, because it means you don't really want them to have it. You're thinking about yourself and not their better good. And I'm not suggesting that's all true, but are there cultures that believe that and where people never really feel depressed, yes or no? So what we feel is based upon three patterns, I said. One of those patterns, I should tell you right now, is a pattern of physiology, which is a fancy word for the way we use our physical body. Now, very often people come to me and they say things like, Mr. Robbins, I don't know what it is, but I feel down all the time. And other people, I don't know what it is, I feel so up. Why do you think I feel so up all the time? Right? Or some people come to me and say, Mr. Robbins, I don't know what it is, but I feel angry all the time. You think you could help me? So why don't we start with your face? Okay? I mean, think about it. You don't feel an emotion, you do an emotion. I want you to get this. Now, I know you react, most of you, to some trigger in the environment, but can someone else have the same trigger and react differently, yes or no? That's called wisdom, that's called intelligence, that's called using the gifts God gave you instead of just reacting like an animal. And we all are going to react at times, but you don't want to stay there for months and months and months and months, or years, or days, or even hours. You want to raise the standard. So it doesn't mean you don't feel feelings. I mean, I have sad feelings, I have hurt feelings, I have frustration feelings, don't get me wrong, but I don't live there. And sometimes it's good to feel those for a short burst, just enough to get you to do something, to make something better, or to appreciate something. But to live there, see, some people do it so much, over and over and over again, until pretty soon, this is all they do, continuously. It's conditioned. And then they go, I can't help it. Right? I can't, I'm telling you. Yes, you can. Start talking like a human. Because you behave differently in a different state, and you're totally in control of your state. Your state is not controlled by what someone else says, or what someone else does, or what you see in the environment. You have one unbelievable gift from your Creator that we all cannot deny. And that is the capacity, in a moment's notice, in a heartbeat, to change your state. Every hero does it. When the going gets tough, somehow they get outside their own fear, their own pain, and they step up. All it is a state change. A hero is a state of mind. Sometimes it's time to be your own hero instead of waiting for someone else to rescue you. So physiology is the first part. Second pattern is a pattern of language. Now, language is an interesting thing. There are two distinctions here. One distinction I call TV. TV stands for transformational vocabulary. There are certain words, as I said earlier, that will magnify human emotion and certain words that will lower the intensity of human emotion. So you just got to notice which words. If you say to somebody something like, I really like you a lot, that gives a different experience than if you say, I love you. That's a very different experience than if you said something even more colorful. Transformational vocabulary means there are certain words that just changing a word, you change your states. Like, have you ever heard someone listen to a speaker that just listening to them moved you or inspired you, like maybe a Martin Luther King or a John F. Kennedy or somebody of that nature? How many remember somebody like that? Say I. Well, they moved you with just words, and words that have a vocal quality probably attached to it. But guess who's moving you every day with words? You are. But the problem is most of you aren't noticing the key words that either make you depressed or make you excited. Now, sometimes we put a group of words together and we start developing a belief system, but the way we develop it is we incant it. Most of the things you believe started as what I call incantations. What's an incantation? An incantation is like when you say something again and again and again with emotional intensities. It's not like an affirmation. You can go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Still not feel happy. That's an affirmation. What turns an affirmation into an incantation is when your entire physiology is involved. Because then what it does, it sends different signals to your nervous system that you mean it when you say something. Like you can say to somebody something like, I love you, or you can say, I love you, or you can say, I love you. And you're sending a different message, right, to the body by the way you incanted it. It's not just the word. So an incantation is when you say a phrase again and again with enough physiology, emotional intensity that it wires your brain. It's like, ever had this experience? Somebody says, hey, could you get me the salt? And you think to yourself, I don't know where the salt is, right? And so you say, I don't know where the salt is. And they say, well, it's just in the kitchen. You've been there. It's on the second shelf. I don't know where it is. Come on, just go get it. I don't know where the salt is. Come on, go get it yourself. I don't know where it is. Go get it. Fine, I don't know where the salt is. I don't know where the salt is. I can't find the salt. I can't find the salt. You open up, I can't find the salt. You look, I can't find the salt. It's not here. It's on the second shelf. Can't find the salt, can't find the salt, can't find it. I can't find the salt. They walk in, stand right next to you, reach right in front of your face and go, what is this? How many have had one of these experiences? Say I. Now, did your eyes see the salt? Yes. But your brain did not allow you to perceive the salt because you incanted 20 times. You couldn't find it, and your brain doesn't want to make you turn you into a liar. Okay? And we do this to ourselves all the time. Right? In psychology, there's a term for it. We call it a scotoma, a blind spot. Where you ever talk to somebody and you're using light, they can't even see it. It's like right there in their face, and it's an idea because they've been incanting it forever. So people come to me, Mr. Robbins, I just can't figure out what I want for my life. I can't figure out what I want. I don't know what I want. I can't figure out what I want. Why do you think I can't figure out what I want? Maybe because you just said 12 times I can't figure it out with total emotional intensity. Maybe a clue. Okay? You have to be careful about your incantations. Okay? Now, so language, there's certain phrases we use, there's certain words we use that lock us into those states. They're like hypnosis. Like remember in the, you read mythology or the times of King Arthur and, Merlin the magician would come along and he would incant these phrases over and over again, right? And then what happened? He'd turn a frog into a prince or a prince into a frog. Well, that's what we're doing to ourselves all the time. So we got to be smart and start noticing those triggers. And those phrases put you in those states. It's not what happened. It's what you're doing with your body, and it's what you're incanting or the words you're using. Then the third pattern that creates any emotion you're feeling is the pattern of what you focus on and what you believe about it. Focus/belief. What you focus on and what you believe about it. If you are in a position where you believe that nothing ever works for you, then that belief will begin to take over and you'll start to feel that way. Now, if you take somebody who's depressed and you give them a drug, will it work? Yes, because it changes the pattern of physiology for the moment. When you change someone's biochemistry, that changes the way they respond for the moment. But when that person takes that drug, but then they keep focusing on what they don't want or they don't have in their life, or what's missing, or they don't have a future, and they keep incanting it, even though they took the drug, these two will overpower this one. That's how someone can take a drug, an antidepressant, and still be depressed. And the person says, oh, we just got the wrong brand. Let's mix two of these together and overcome it. See, what that's called is trying to put a Band-Aid on something that's not going to heal because you haven't dealt with the source of it. And dealing with the source of it's really quite easy. We got to change the belief that makes us keep using that physiology. But very often we don't have to do that. We just change the pattern of physiology, the belief goes away. The secret, though, is to condition it so it stays. Now, obviously, there's more to it than what I'm talking about, but this is the fundamental basis of making your life work. Because whatever you think your life working is will come down to some emotions. You want to feel love and joy and excitement and passion and peace and connection to God and your friends and all that stuff. And guess what? You're doing all of it or you're not doing all of it. And if you're not doing it, we just got to see, what are you doing? And let's change it. The only reason you don't is you don't believe it's possible. The only reason you don't is because you keep using the same physiology. You go, I don't know why I'm so scared. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden we change it and everything shifts. And then what we now do is condition it. So the question is this: what is it that stops you from getting what you want? And the answer is fear. That's it. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, feeling of being disappointed, that fear of not looking good. It's just fear. Now, no achievers ever admit to being fearful. They're just stressed. You say, well, I'm really stressed because I'm not going to make the meeting. What you're really saying is, I'm afraid I'm not going to make the meeting. Well, what happens if you don't make the meeting? Then someone will be upset with me, or I won't be this, or I won't be perfect, or I won't be whatever, and I won't meet the rules, and then I won't feel good. It's fear. Next time you say you're stressed, just tell yourself the truth. You're afraid, right? Even if you're an achiever, yes, you do have fears. Having fears is called being human. The secret, though, is when you identify it, is to attack it and to change it. And the fastest way, by the way, of these three to change one state is the first quadrant of the triad, physiology. A radical change in physiology will change you faster than anything you can try and think yourself into. Because what you're doing is, it's like changing the plug. You know, you got a great computer, but you don't plug it in, it's not going to work too well. And when you change your physiology, it's like TV, it's like changing the channel. Now you go from a sad story to an adventure, just by making a change in the channel, the way you use your physiology in that moment. Okay? So think of it in those terms. Physiology, language, focus/belief. Anything you want to change will come down to changing those three things. I got a phone call, found out there's a lady, some of you remember, an entertainer named Carly Simon. Carly Simon couldn't get on stage. And I heard she couldn't get on stage, and somebody was talking to me, and I wasn't able to come help her because I just wasn't available. But I did find out from the friend what her symptoms were. Here's what she would do. She would do something very similar to what I had seen as a pattern with someone else. In fact, let me give you someone else first. I meet Bruce Springsteen for the first time. Meet Bruce, and I'm a big fan. I'm like really excited to meet him, like he's my hero, right? And so I go up to talk to him and everything else, and as I'm talking to him, he's really nice, and I said, tell me something. What's it like for you on stage? Do you still get juiced? Is it still like, does your body get going? Does your mind get going? Or are you just really relaxed? Like, what's it like for you? I'm curious after all these years. He said, are you kidding me? He said, every single time I go out there, he said, I feel a certain thing happen to my body. I want you to hear these parallels. Here's what Carly Simon says. Here's what he says about going on stage. Carly Simon says, when I think about going on stage, what happens is my heart starts beating really, really fast. And she goes, and then my whole thing, my muscles in my hands start to tighten up, and I start to sweat, and my breathing starts to speed up. And as I think about going out there, she says, everything starts speeding up faster and faster. I feel all this tension, all this pressure. And she goes, and then I know I'm having a panic attack and I can't go out. Bruce Springsteen says, when I think about going out there, he said, like everything in my body starts speeding up. And he said, I feel this tension in my hands. I start sweating. He said, just still today, just like before. My heart starts beating like crazy. He said, right then I go, man, I know I'm ready. Someone starts to feel something, go, oh my God, I'm so stressed, right? Oh, I'm feeling stressed. You could go, oh, I'm feeling excited. Because stressed and excited are very close, aren't they? And what happens is a subtle change, and usually when you put the language on it, it shifts it. You may have been on the verge. You could go from either one. Someone says, oh, I'm breaking down. No, maybe you're breaking through. So you got to know that this is not some fancy schmancy like psychobabble. This is human physiology. So fear is the only thing that stops you. How fast can you get out of fear? Heartbeat. But most of you don't for two reasons. It's not a must. You don't have a standard that says, I must. When you must, you do. Watch people in war. Some of them go collapse, but most of them figure it's a must, and they figure it out, don't they? I go watch an unbelievably intense movie about Private Ryan. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a bunch of people tell me about it. It sounds like you get a real reality check of what war's like, and you see how people function in that environment. It's just a must, so they figure it out. Stuff they would never normally do day to day. They could never handle day to day. They have to, so they do. Don't make life make you have to. You make the have-tos. So it's proactive. So fear is what stops us. What changes our whole life is action. Why don't we take action? Fear. What do we got to do to get ourselves to do it? We got to make sure that we push ourselves through it by making a decision. The point in which change happens is a decision. Every change in your life that you want will come from something simple, a decision. People go, what does it take to change? Decide. But you go, oh, God sounds so simple and so basic. If it was that easy, you'd already have done it, Mr. Robbins. No, it is that easy, and you're still not doing it because you are not putting yourself in a state to decide. See, a real decision is not like a preference. It's not like where you say, I'll try it and see. That's not a decision. Decision comes from Latin. It means like incision, to cut off from. Decision is when you cut off any possibility except the thing you've committed to. It's like that is it. How many of you in this room have ever smoked cigarettes and then one day you finally decided no more, I mean really decided, and you've never touched it again and you're not even tempted to? How many made that decision at one time? Say aye. You know what a real decision is. If I came to you today and I said,